This your girl, Empress Goddess of Georgia Peach. The gorgeous goat. Let's see what we had here. Okay. Let's get in here with the Federalist Papers. Hey, what's up, Miss Joe? How you doing tonight, love?
Are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recorded by Kim Braun. The Federalist Papers. Federalist Number 1. General Introduction. For the Independent Journal. Saturday, October 27th, 1787. Hamilton. To the people of the State of New York.
You alright today?
After an unequivocal experience of the inefficacy of the subsisting federal government, you are called upon to deliberate on a new Constitution for the United States of America. The subject speaks its own importance, comprehending in its consequences nothing less than the existence of the Union, the safety and welfare of the parts of which it is composed, the fate of an empire in many respects the most interesting in the world. It has been frequently remarked that it seems to have been reserved to the people of this country, by their conduct and example, to decide the important question, whether societies of men are really capable or not of establishing good government from reflection and choice, or whether they are forever destined to depend for their political constitutions on accident and force. If there be any truth in the remark, the crisis at which we are arrived may with propriety be regarded as the era in which that decision is to be made, and a wrong election of the part we shall act may, in this view, deserve to be considered as the general misfortune of mankind. This idea will add the inducements of philanthropy to those of patriotism, to heighten the solicitude which all considerate and good men must feel for the event. Happy will it be if our choice should be directed by a judicious estimate of our true interests, unperplexed and unbiased by considerations not connected with the public good. But this is a thing more ardently to be wished than seriously to be expected. The plan offered to our deliberations affects too many particular interests, innovates upon too many local institutions, not to involve in its discussion a variety of objects foreign to its merits, and of views, passions, and prejudices little favorable to the discovery of truth. Among the most formidable of the obstacles which the new Constitution will have to encounter may readily be distinguished the obvious interest of a certain class of men in every state to resist all changes which may hazard a diminution of the power, emolument, and consequence of the offices they hold under the state establishments, and the perverted ambition of another class of men, who will either hope to aggrandize themselves by the confusions of their country, or will flatter themselves with fairer prospect of elevation from the subdivision of the empire into several partial confederacies than from its union under one government. It is not, however, my design to dwell upon observations of this nature. I am well aware that it would be disingenuous to resolve indiscriminately the opposition of any set of men, merely because their situations might subject them to suspicion, into interested or ambitious views. Candor will oblige us to admit that even such men may be actuated by upright intentions. and it cannot be doubted that much of the opposition which has made its appearance, or may hereafter make its appearance, will spring from sources, blameless at least, if not respectable, the honest errors of minds led astray by preconceived jealousies and fears. So numerous indeed, and so powerful are the causes which serve to give a false bias to the judgment, that we, upon many occasions, see wise and good men on the wrong as well as on the right side of questions of the first magnitude to society. This circumstance, if duly attended to, would furnish a lesson of moderation to those who are ever so much persuaded of their being in the right in any controversy. And a further reason for caution in this respect might be drawn from the reflection that we are not always sure that those who advocate the truth are influenced by purer principles than their antagonists. Ambition, avarice, personal animosity, party opposition, and many other motives not more laudable than these, are apt to operate as well upon those who support as those who oppose the right side of a question. Were there not in these inducements to moderation, nothing could be more ill-judged than that intolerant spirit which has, at all times, characterized political parties. For in politics, as in religion, it is equally absurd to aim at making proselytes by fire and sword. Heresies in either can rarely be cured by persecution. And yet, however just these sentiments will be allowed to be, we have already sufficient indications that it will happen in this as in all former cases of great national discussion. A torrent of angry and malignant passions will be let loose. To judge from the conduct of the opposite parties, we shall be led to conclude that they will mutually hope to evince the justness of their opinions, and to increase the number of their converts, by the loudness of their declamations and the bitterness of their invectives. An enlightened zeal for the energy and efficiency of government will be stigmatized as the offspring of a temper fond of despotic power and hostile to the principles of liberty. An over-scrupulous jealousy of danger to the rights of the people, which is more commonly the fault of the head than of the heart, will be represented as mere pretense and artifice, the stale bait for popularity at the expense of the public good. It will be forgotten, on the one hand, that jealousy is the usual concomitant of love, and that the noble enthusiasm of liberty is apt to be infected with a spirit of narrow and illiberal distrust. On the other hand, it will be equally forgotten that the vigor of government is essential to the security of liberty, that, in the contemplation of a sound and well-informed judgment, their interest can never be separated, and that a dangerous ambition more often lurks behind the specious mask of zeal for the rights of the people than under the forbidden appearance of zeal for the firmness and efficiency of government. History will teach us that the former has been found a much more certain road to the introduction of despotism than the latter, and of those men who have overturned the liberties of republics, the greatest number have begun their career by paying an obsequious court to the people, commencing demagogues, and ending tyrants. In the course of the preceding observations, I have had an eye, my fellow citizens, to putting you upon your guard against all attempts, from whatever quarter, to influence your decision in a matter of the utmost moment to your welfare, by any impressions other than those which may result from the evidence of truth. You will, no doubt, at the same time, have collected from the general scope of them, that they proceed from a source not unfriendly to the new Constitution. Yes, my countrymen, I own to you that, after having given it an attentive consideration, I am clearly of opinion it is your interest to adopt it. I am convinced that this is the safest course for your liberty, your dignity, and your happiness. I affect not reserves which I do not feel. I will not amuse you with an appearance of deliberation when I have decided. I frankly acknowledge to you my convictions, and I will freely lay before you the reasons on which they are founded. The consciousness of good intentions disdains ambiguity. I shall not, however, multiply professions on this head. My motives must remain in the depository of my own breast. My arguments will be open to all, and may be judged of by all. They shall at least be offered in a spirit which will not disgrace the cause of truth. I propose, in a series of papers, to discuss the following interesting particulars: the utility of the Union to your political prosperity, the insufficiency of the present Confederation to preserve that Union, the necessity of a government at least equally energetic with the one proposed to the attainment of this object, the conformity of the proposed Constitution to the true principles of republican government, its analogy to your own state constitution, and lastly, the additional security which its adoption will afford to the preservation of that species of government, to liberty and to property. In the progress of this discussion, I shall endeavor to give a satisfactory answer to all the objections which shall have made their appearance, that may seem to have any claim to your attention. It may perhaps be thought superfluous to our arguments to prove the utility of the Union, a point, no doubt, deeply engraved on the hearts of the great body of the people in every state, and one which, it may be imagined, has no adversaries. But the fact is that we already hear it whispered in the private circles of those who oppose the new Constitution, that the 13 States are of too great extent for any general system, and that we must, of necessity, resort to separate confederacies of distinct portions of the whole. Footnote: the same idea, tracing the arguments to their consequences, is held out in several of the late publications against the new Constitution. End of footnote. This doctrine will, in all probability, be gradually propagated till it has votaries enough to countenance an open avowal of it. For nothing can be more evident to those who are able to take an enlarged view of the subject than the alternative of an adoption of the new Constitution or a dismemberment of the Union. It will therefore be of use to begin by point, no doubt, deeply engraved on the hearts of the great body of the people in every state, and one which, it may be imagined, has no adversaries. But the fact is that we already hear it whispered in the private circles of those who oppose the new Constitution, that the 13 States are of too great extent for any general system, and that we must, of necessity, resort to separate confederacies of distinct portions of the whole. Footnote: the same idea, tracing the arguments to their consequences, is held out in several of the late publications against the new Constitution. End of footnote. This doctrine will, in all probability, be gradually propagated till it has votaries enough to countenance an open avowal of it. For nothing can be more evident to those who are able to take an enlarged view of the subject than the alternative of an adoption of the new Constitution or a dismemberment of the Union. It will therefore be of use to begin by examining the advantages of that Union, the certain evils and the probable dangers to which every state will be exposed from its dissolution. This shall accordingly constitute the subject of my next address. Publius. End of Federalist Number 1. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recorded by Kim Braun. The Federalist Papers. Federalist Number 2. Concerning dangers from foreign force and influence. For the Independent Journal. Wednesday, October 31st, 1787. J. To the people of the State of New York. When the people of America reflect that they are now called upon to decide a question which, in its consequences, must prove one of the most important that ever engaged their attention, the propriety of their taking a very comprehensive, as well as a very serious, view of it will be evident. Nothing is more certain than the indispensable necessity of government, and it is equally undeniable that whenever and however it is instituted, the people must cede to it some of their natural rights in order to vest it with requisite powers. It is well worthy of consideration, therefore, whether it would conduce more to the interest of the people of America that they should, to all general purposes, be one nation under one federal government, or that they should divide themselves into separate confederacies, and give to the head of each the same kind of powers which they are advised to place in one national government. It has until lately been received and uncontradicted opinion that the prosperity of the people of America depended on their continuing firmly united, and the wishes, prayers, and efforts of our best and wisest citizens have been constantly directed to that object. But politicians now appear who insist that this opinion is erroneous, and that instead of looking for safety and happiness in union, we ought to seek it in a division of the states into distinct confederacies or sovereignties. However extraordinary this new doctrine may appear, it nevertheless has its advocates, and certain characters who were much opposed to it formerly are at present of the number. Whatever may be the arguments or inducements which have wrought this change in the sentiments and declarations of these gentlemen, it certainly would not be wise in the people at large to adopt these new political tenets without being fully convinced that they are founded in truth and sound policy. It has often given me pleasure to observe that independent America was not composed of detached and distant territories. Convened the late convention at Philadelphia to take that important subject under consideration. This convention, composed of men who possessed the confidence of the people, and many of whom had become highly distinguished by their patriotism, virtue, and wisdom in times which tried the minds and hearts of men, undertook the arduous task. In the mild season of peace, with minds unoccupied by other subjects, they passed many months in cool, uninterrupted, and daily consultation, and finally, without having been awed by power or influenced by any passions except love for their country, they presented and recommended to the people the plan produced by their joint and very unanimous councils. Admit, for so is the fact, that this plan is only recommended, not imposed, yet let it be remembered that it is neither recommended to blind approbation nor to blind reprobation, but to that sedate and
Prince Hall Freemasonry. To fully understand and appreciate the significance of Prince Hall Freemasonry, we need to examine the extraordinary life of Prince Hall himself. For it was his unwillingness to be victimized and downtrodden as an African American that led to the establishment of the oldest and largest predominantly African American fraternity in the United States.
I constantly saw my father with his ritual, with these strange individuals coming to our home and staying for about 2 or 2.5 hours. And I could never go up where they were, and I could never hear what they were talking about. But I know that they all had little black books, and occasionally they would dress up, put on a black suit and a white apron, and go somewhere. When I became of age, I filled out a petition, gave it to my father, he submitted it, and I was approved for initiation into the Prince Hall Masonic Lodge in Virginia. On the
What does Booker T. Washington, Thurgood Marshall, Richard Pryor, Sugar Ray Robinson, Nelson Mandela, Elijah Muhammad, Louis Farrakhan, Scottie Pippen, Shaquille O'Neal, Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, Medgar Evers, Nat King Cole, Reverend Calvin Butts, James Clyburn, Benjamin Crump, Elijah Cummings, Don King, Roland Martin, Michael Jordan, Ricky Smiley, Tom Joyner, Bill Cosby, and Steve Harvey all have in common besides being black men. Well, if you looked at the title of this video, I guess you have figured out that they are all Prince Hall Freemasons. Trust me, the list goes on and on. Right now, currently, we are in the month where America likes to say they are celebrating Black history. But while they speak on our history, their truth is always edited. Like, if I told the story of Black people in America and left out their time in captivity being slaves, people would aggressively accuse me of leaving out or editing our history. Yet after slavery, the story of Black people in America has become seriously edited. And the sad part is, there's very little fuss about it because most people just don't know. We basically went from slaves to segregated to fighting for civil rights to having prominent Black individuals in all facets of the country to now people claiming there is equality. That is the story that most people want to believe.
Change has come to America.
But the truth is that this version of history is extremely edited. There is something that must be understood in modern day Black history, particularly in America. Without it, you miss a very big side of history that will always leave you blinded and confused and led astray into rebellion. There is no modern day Black history without talking about Prince Hall Freemasons. Mostly everything that we know today in our Black American culture has been cultivated and steered by Prince Hall Freemasons. They are literally an unseen hand of Black America. So we can no longer just go through the cycle of speaking about Black History Month and not discussing the real shakers of our Black history. Like, we'll talk about the individual, but who they are and what they were a part of, we love to leave out. We all need to know about Prince Hall Freemasonry. Let's begin. So a few weeks back, I did a video about what is Freemasonry. If you do not understand what Freemasonry is, I suggest you watch that video. This video is not about Freemasonry. Once you understand the structure, the symbols, who they serve, and why, you can then on your own form your own educated opinion about the religion/organization. The unfortunate truth is that too many people form their opinions without this information. That information is important to know, because if you do happen to step on this side of the information and then recognize how much influence Freemasons have had on our culture and way of life, how many prominent men of our society have been Freemasons, the information may be used as a recruitment tool for them because they frame it all as accomplishments and stories of empowerment. But understanding Freemasonry and then understanding the true bloodline of many of these men who became Prince Hall Freemasons, it moves from a vantage point of empowerment and success to now seeing people just plainly selling out. But our history today, unfortunately, has made heroes out of those we should look at as villains. But again, this video is not about Freemasonry. We need to discuss the hidden role the religion/organization called Freemasonry has had on our society as a whole, because whether you know it or not, Prince Hall Freemasonry is a backbone of the Black community. And even if you are not part of the Black community, you must understand there is an edited side of the story that we are being told. I'm sure many are not aware that in Black America, since the ending of the Civil War, Freemasonry was used as a tool for cultural improvement and advancement. It is what Blacks in America clung to as a source of equality, freedom, and justice. There wouldn't be a civil rights movement in America without Freemasonry. And maybe your initial thought is to cheer them on for it. But what if these goals and movements were less about equality and freedom and more about rebellion, walking away from our Creator, and a different form of slavery? We'll get to that. Either way, like I said earlier, the story of Black America cannot be accurately and fully told without recording the impact that Prince Hall Freemasonry had upon Black society. Behind nearly every pivotal turn in the history of Black America, Prince Hall Freemasons may be found, especially in the Black church. The foundation of Prince Hall Freemasonry was laid between 1775 and 1847. On March 6, 1775, 15 civilians were initiated in the Freemason Grand Lodge of Ireland, Lodge number 441, which had a lodge chartered in Boston, Massachusetts. These 15 men were blacks from the Boston area. One of them was named Prince Hall. Now, this is important to understand and note. It wasn't the American Freemasons who initiated these men, but the lodges in England. So it wasn't like racism didn't apply to these men. In 1776, during the War for Independence between America and England, the 15 black men, including Prince Hall, formed themselves into a lodge which was called African Lodge Number 1, under the leadership of Prince Hall. There is a 300-page book known as Prince Hall's Letter Book, which provides much of the records about all of this and how the African lodges grew and spread. African Lodge, under leadership of Prince Hall, was held in high regard in the general community, aside from the racists who opposed them because of their color and race. The lodge was particularly attractive to leaders in the black community. It showed a different type of black man that was not seen in this country before then. Hall then established 2 new lodges, one in Providence, Rhode Island, and the other in Philadelphia. Remember Philadelphia, because they are important for another subject. African Lodge of Boston continued to meet and to grow in numbers, and Prince Hall remained its master until his death on December 4th, 1807. Prince Hall was succeeded as master of African Lodge by Nero Prince. It is claimed that in 1808, representatives of the 3 lodges, African Lodge of Boston, African Lodge of Philadelphia, and African Lodge of Providence, met together and organized an African Grand Lodge with Nero Prince as the Grand Master. And they changed the name from African Lodge to Prince Hall Grand Lodge in memory of Prince Hall. And they started expanding, adding more lodges. And this was the foundation of what is now Prince Hall Freemasonry. The Masons were not considered equals amongst their white brothers. They were barred entrance as members in the great majority of white lodges. And this was a huge reason why expansion was necessary. The lodge started to be used as an institution of union and social uplift in the black community. In a Masonic-run country, joining this institution seemed like a way of uplifting the black community and finding ties with their oppressors. They joined the great plan to serve the architect or God of Freemasonry. And the truth is that that goal and alliance in the end superseded the hate because of their race or bloodline, because it was a clear declaration that they were on their side. But it's not like they didn't deal with racism. To a great extent, the Prince Hall Masons were isolated from white masonry, although they seem to have learned and emulated many of the customs and usages of the neighboring lodges and grand lodges, so that they may speak in general terms of American Masonic practice, without having to distinguish between Prince Hall and mainstream when comparing other countries. The foundation that Prince Hall laid was the beginning of the rise of the Negro in America. Yet this story is seldom told in our history books and in our schools. I wonder why, if it was such a noble and admirable thing. But I digress. There's a lot of details on how they grew and spread their membership around the country, but the details are inconsequential. They grew and gathered black men into the Masonic traditions. Here's the thing that needs to be understood. At this point, we'll see the foundation of where confusion comes in the black community. If you take a look at the black community today and you see leadership, you'll see it in many different types of roles: business leaders, politicians, civil rights leaders, etc. But it was not always so. If the white Masons were in power and they had a problem with even recognizing the Prince Hall Masons, then it's obvious that moving into those high roles in American society would take some time. So what did the Prince Hall Masons do? Because they were still leaders in their community. There was a huge attachment to the black church. And if you ever want to understand how things are so bad in the church today, you should know that from the start, when the foundations of the church in America were being built, it was already contaminated. Many of the black churches across the country were being run by Freemasons. In my research, it is said that it is normal routine for the opening and closing prayers in a Prince Hall Lodge or social function to be ended in the name of Jesus, and to include other exclusively Christian phrases during the prayer. It is said that only the Prince Hall Grand Lodge of California practices a craft, that means Masonic, ritual, which actually mentions Jesus. But
First degree, apprentice. The 12-inch rule and the common gavel. Force, unregulated or ill-regulated, is not only wasted in the void, like that of gunpowder burned in the open air, and steam unconfined by science, but, striking in the dark, and its blows meeting only the air, they recoil and bruise itself. It is destruction and ruin. It is the volcano, the earthquake, the cyclone, not growth and progress. It is Polyphemus blinded, striking at random, and falling headlong among the sharp rocks by the impetus of his own blows. The blind force of the people is a force that must be economized, and also managed, as the blind force of steam, lifting the ponderous iron arms and turning the large wheels, is made to bore and rifle the cannon and to weave the most delicate lace. It must be Jachin and Boaz, or an authentic key to the door of Freemasonry. Contents. 1. A circumstantial account of all the proceedings in making a Mason, with the several obligations of an entered apprentice, fellow craft and master, the prayers, and also the sign, grip, and password of each degree. 2. The manner of opening a lodge and setting the craft to work. 3. The entered apprentice, fellow craft, and master's lecture, verbatim, as delivered in all lodges, with the song at the conclusion of each part. 4. The origin of Masonry, description of Solomon's temple, history of the murder of the Grand Master Hiram by the 3 fellow crafts, their discovery and punishment, the burial of Hiram by King Solomon's order, with the 5 points of fellowship, etc. 5. The ceremony of the installment of the masters of different lodges on St. John's Day, description of the regalia, etc. 6. Ceremonies used at the funeral of a Mason. 7. A safe and easy method proposed, by which a man may obtain admittance into any lodge without passing through the form required, and thereby save a guinea or 2 in his pocket. To all Freemasons. The author of the following pages has the honor of being respected in most of the lodges of reputation in this metropolis. He acquired his knowledge at first from some loose papers belonging to a merchant to whom he was nearly related, who had been a member of the Queen's Arms, St. Paul's Churchyard. This relation dying about 10 years ago, the editor became possessed of his effects, and on looking over papers, among others he found some memorandums or remarks on Masonry, which excited his curiosity so far, that he resolved on accomplishing his scheme without going through the ceremony required by the society. The remarks of his friend above mentioned furnished hints sufficient to make a trial on an intimate acquaintance, a Freemason, with
Greetings, everybody. I hope that you're doing well today. And you know what? It's a good day. It's a good day. Hold on just a second for me. Just a second here. Let me do this real quick. Yeah, let me do this real quick. Cut that down right there. And I'm gonna come right back to you. How you doing today, everybody? Do me a favor, hit the like button tonight. I certainly would appreciate it. If you're coming in, please hit the like button. If you want to call in, that's going to be 619-985, nope, 619-286-0642 if you want to call in tonight. We're looking at having a good show, a great show tonight. Definitely this episode is called the preparation for the initiation. Preparation for the initiation. So we're looking forward to definitely getting into this subject because a lot of
Hi, welcome to Bible News. Yes, another Bible News. Today's news is Easter's while back, we dealt with the Masons. Let's find out if they go hand in hand. And also for the women's, ask yourself the question, or ask a woman a question. Can you be a Christian and an Eastern Star at the same time? That's a very important question to ask yourself. But without further delay, brothers and sisters, let's get into the Bible. This is what we're about, the Bible here on Bible News, raw and uncut news station. We're going to go to St. John chapter 1 because we have always went to St. John chapter 1 because the first thing we want to do is give honor to our God, which is Jesus, and the Father, because you can't get to the Father unless you go through the Son, which is Jesus, and he is God. Let the scripture prove it. St. John chapter 1, and it reads, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God,